Now that the GOP has succeeded in passing major tax cuts for the wealthiest people in the country and corporations, they will move on to welfare reform. One of the reasons why you should expect it is because House Speaker Paul Ryan has been incredibly forthcoming about their plans to cut funding for programs like Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security. Here he is on Fox News making that extremely clear.
Just so you know, Martha, the House has passed all of these bills. The House passed the biggest entitlement reform bill ever passed by a Congress in May, our health care bill. Unfortunately, the Senate fell basically a vote short from doing that. So what are we going to do in 2018? We're going to pick up where we left off and get back at reforming health care. We're going to get back at reforming these entitlements. And we're going to take on welfare reform, which is another big entitlement program where we're basically paying people, able-bodied people, not to work, and we're depriving them with all these disincentives from going into the workforce. This good economy we're going to get out of this faster-growing economy, is going to produce higher wages and more demand for good-paying jobs.
Well, you know what?
And that's what's going to, so welfare reform is the perfect time to do welfare reform.
Democrats can't wait for you to take that move because they think that's going to help them a lot in 2018. When you look at the generic matchup right now, Democrats are up by 11% in House races if you just pick, a Democrat over a Republican. So how are you going to tackle these things and still maintain your majority in 2018?
I'll take results over rhetoric any day of the year, of the month.
Okay, so he is very honest about the fact that they want welfare reform, and other members of the GOP have been clear about that as well. Now, here's the issue. What that Fox News host said about Democrats looking forward to them trying to take that on is actually very true, because several polls have indicated that the American public does not want cuts to these programs. And I'm not just talking about liberals, I'm not just talking about Democrats, I'm talking about Americans in general. One of the more recent polls was done by the Kaiser Family Foundation, and the results, to be quite honest with you, surprised me. So let's get right to it. 12% of American adults want to see President Trump and Congress decrease spending for Medicaid. Only 12% of American adults.
And let me just pause there, because that's such an amazing number. Because Medicare and Social Security you pay into, and that's why they're called entitlements, because you're entitled to them. It's your goddamn money. Medicaid is for the poor. So I want to applaud and celebrate the decency of the overwhelming majority of Americans who say, even though it doesn't go to most of us, it goes to the poor, I don't want you to cut it. That's actually great news. So these guys, these Republicans think, oh, we'll trick them on everything. We said that the tax cuts wouldn't go to the rich, and then almost all of them go to the rich. And now we'll cut their Medicaid and Medicare, and we'll trick. You're not going to trick them on that. It's going to be deeply unpopular.
So I'm about to say something that's my own take and my own speculation, okay? I don't have the data in front of me, so take it with a grain of salt. But I actually think that the people who are saying no, don't cut this, we want to maintain the funding for it, are people who at some point in their lives probably needed to rely on Medicaid. I mean, when you think about income inequality in the country right now, when you think about that growing gap between the rich and the poor, I personally know people who identify as conservative Republicans who have relied on Medicaid during hard times and actually said they love the program, and for some reason have this weird cognitive dissonance where they don't realize, hey, the party that you keep voting for wants to cut it. But nonetheless, I think that a lot of people have had to rely on it, and so that's the reason why they want to keep it.
Yeah, and so you're right, and a huge percentage of Americans have either done it or know people that have done it, especially because of, like you said, the suppressed wages, et cetera. But when you get more into the numbers, you see that it's not just a Democratic thing, and it's not just people who have used Medicaid, because the numbers are too large.
So let's give you some more numbers from this particular survey. 4 in 10 prefer to increase Medicaid spending, and nearly half, 47%, want funding levels to remain the same. So most Americans want the funding to remain the same, and some portion of the country, 4 out of 10, actually want more funding for Medicaid.
So when they go to cut Medicaid and only 12% approve, at some point, reality does catch up with you. So I know they'll have more money again, in terms of the congressional elections. Again, the Republicans usually do. And although now the small donors for the Democrats are overpowering the big donors of Republicans for the first time I've ever seen in my life. It started with Bernie Sanders, and then in these special elections, especially in Virginia, small donors made a gigantic difference for the Democrats. But they can try to trick people to no end, but if they've actually used the government program and it's not theoretical, so maybe they don't see the trillions of dollars of tax cuts going to the rich. They don't see it with their own eyes. They don't see them buying the mansions or the yachts. But they know this, their Medicare, Social Security, and Medicaid in their own life. And that's what leads to even Republicans thinking that it would be a terrible idea to cut Medicaid.
So let's focus on Republicans specifically. And this is yet another poll that Pew Research did that surprised me and shocked me. So according to data from the Pew Research Center, only 15% of those who identify as Republicans support decreasing funding for Medicare. Only 10% of Republicans support decreased funding for Social Security, an entitlement program primarily benefiting older Americans after retirement. So most Republicans do not want cuts to Medicare, they don't want cuts to Social Security, and Speaker Ryan is right there saying clearly and very transparently that that is what they are going to target. They are going to target entitlement reforms. And by the way, I didn't miss the fact that he said, oh, these are able-bodied people taking advantage. Most people who take advantage of programs like Medicaid are poor, okay? They have to qualify for it. And also Social Security and Medicare, yeah, it's again an entitlement program because we have paid into it. We have paid into it. People who get to a certain age in their lives should be able to receive their Social Security benefits without worrying about goons like you cutting it.
So majority of Americans above the age of 65 voted for Trump. If he goes to cut their Social Security and Medicare, there is going to be a heavy political price to pay. Those programs are so deeply popular and they keep people afloat, they keep them alive. So that is cutting to the bone. It is a terrible political mistake that I hope they make. I hope they don't succeed, that they try it and then they fail and they pay the political price, because that is what their intent is. They've been trying, even Eisenhower warned about it. He was a Republican and he said there's only a certain number of conservatives who want to cut Social Security and Medicare. They're usually Texas oil billionaires, the Bushes, anyway, not quite billionaires, but oil men from Texas. And the really rich, and they are stupid, he said. And here they are again, decades later, trying the same damn thing. And even Republicans, even not on Social Security, on Medicare, but they said, okay, should we cut funding for programs for America's needy? And only 37% said yes. Most of them said no, even if it doesn't apply to me, don't cut it, right? And when it comes to them, I mean, these numbers are minuscule. Only 15% of Republicans supporting cutting Medicare, only 10% cutting Social Security. They're gonna run into a brick wall with that so-called genius Paul Ryan leading the way. And Trump said he would never touch them. And of course, every single thing he said during the campaign was a lie. This is likely to be a lie. I hope he leads this charge and that it's his Waterloo. And then Americans finally wake up and go, oh, right. They meant to take my money and give it to the rich. Yes, that's the whole point of the Republican Party. If you like this video, bless your heart. We got a lot more where that came from. We do a full show every day, Monday through Friday. Come enjoy it ad-free by becoming a member, tytnetwork.com/join.